Just please let me know where she is so I can bury her.
Rules her ex-boyfriend will have to stand trial for her murder.
Be a large crime scene with a substantial amount of blood in the bathroom.
Talking about silencers and breakups and what happens.
I can't get in the mind of a murderer, of a psychotic killer.
On January 2nd, 2025, in Warren, Michigan, Ashley Lachey Elkins, a 30-year-old mother of two, drove to the home of her ex-boyfriend, Diandre Booker. The two of them hadn't spoken in a long time. She hasn't been seen since. To this day, Ashley Elkins' body has never been found. There are a lot of strange details in this case, and even more unanswered questions. In this video, we're going to dig into what actually happened that morning of January 2nd. Ashley Lachey Elkins grew up in the Detroit area, in a family where staying close meant everything. Her mother, Monica, her sister, Alexis, her cousin, Taylor Redmond, her uncle, Maurice Morton. A big, tight-knit family, and by their own account, the kind where going more than a day without checking in was basically unheard of.
She was a mom who fought and cared and took care of her children.
Her mother would later describe her daughter in a single word: an angel. Always upbeat, always the life of the party, someone who loved her kids and her family without limits. That's the Ashley everyone knew, which is exactly why her disappearance set off alarm bells immediately. A woman like that doesn't just vanish for days without a word. Ashley trained as a hairstylist and ran her own small business out of her home on Knox Road in Warren. Her clients didn't just come for a haircut. According to the people who loved her, they came for the conversation, for the mood boost, for the way she could win over anyone who walked through her door. She had two sons, 10-year-old Braden and 7-year-old Jaden. Her youngest son is on the autism spectrum, and by all accounts he was especially attached to his mom, needing her close by, needing her attention. Working from home let Ashley juggle her clients and her boys at the same time, a rare setup for a single mom who didn't have to choose between the office and her kids. Everyone who knew her said the same thing. Ashley picked up every call, every text, no matter where she was or what she was doing. At the time, Ashley was going through some financial struggles. Her family never got specific about the details, but that hardship would later come up as a possible piece of the puzzle, a reason she might have done what she did next. Here's how Ashley was described. About 5'2", roughly 150 pounds, dark skin, braids, a piercing on her right cheek, 2 rings in her right nostril. Warren and Roseville sit just a few miles apart, both Detroit suburbs. It's the kind of place where exes don't fully disappear from each other's lives even after a breakup. Same shopping centers, same roads, same people in common. Ashley's house and Booker's apartment weren't far enough apart for either of them to completely vanish from the other's orbit, even if one of them genuinely wanted to. Diandre Howard Booker, 32, 33 by the time all this happened, lived in Roseville at the Hampton Court Apartments on Pinehurst Street. He hadn't held a job in over a year. Before that, he'd worked as a nursing assistant in Ann Arbor, a job built around caretaking, around responsibility.
In 2017, he was charged with desertion or the absence without leave of going AWOL from the Army.
And before that, he served in the US Army. That chapter of his life didn't end well. A year before his discharge, he was accused of theft and possessing forged identification while on active duty. Then he deserted. In 2017, the Army cut him loose with what's called a less than honorable discharge, a permanent mark on his official record, Form DD-214. Beyond that military history though, neither the defense nor the prosecution could point to any civilian criminal record for Booker. Just that one chapter, sitting in his past for almost 8 years. By the time he met Ashley, Booker was unemployed, renting an apartment in Roseville, and by all appearances scraping by on whatever came his way. The military career that could have given him a stable foundation had ended in disciplinary trouble and theft charges. The nursing job that came after was long gone too. When his relationship with Ashley started, he was a man with no steady income, no career track, and, based on what came later, not much drive to change any of that. Ashley and Diandre were together for about a year. It ended around September 2024. According to her family, Ashley made it clear after the breakup that she was done with him. Booker, if what happened next is any indication, didn't see it the same way. The 3 months between the breakup and mid-December passed quietly. No documented incidents, nothing flagged by the investigation or by her family. But quiet didn't mean he'd let it go. The first real sign that Booker had no intention of moving on didn't show up in a call or a text. It showed up in his search history, data he clearly never expected to end up in a courtroom. On December 15th, 2024, someone searched "how to make her miss you" from his phone.
And then a lot of Google searches, to the extent that it was very disturbing to the judge, talking about silencers.
The next day, December 16th, a more specific version, "how to make her miss you after a breakup." On their own, these searches aren't rare. Plenty of people look up ways to win back an ex, and most of them never act on it. But given everything that followed, these two searches would become the opening entries in a timeline prosecutors would later lay out in court. A timeline of an obsession that kept building. Look closely at the wording, not "how to get her back," not "how to talk to her again." Specifically, "how to make her miss me." That phrasing says something on its own. This isn't about reconnecting as equals. It's about control, managing someone else's feelings from a distance. Whether that obsession came from real feelings for Ashley or from wounded pride after being rejected, that's a question for a psychologist, not something the evidence can answer. On December 31st, 2024, 2 days before Ashley disappeared, something happened that her family would later point to as a major red flag. Booker booked a haircut appointment at Ashley's home salon under a fake name. The fact that he used a different name in the first place tells you he already knew she'd turn him away if she recognized who was booking it.
Based on the evidence that and what was shared with us by the police, that she's deceased at this time.
Ashley's mother, Monica, remembers this moment clearly. He knocked on the front door, and somehow, through the window, through a camera, Ashley saw who it was. She understood immediately. According to Monica, Ashley told everyone in the house to stay completely silent and hid while Booker knocked, first at the front door, then at the side door. Eventually he left without an answer. That's not the reaction of someone expecting a random visit from an old acquaintance. Asking your whole household to go silent, to pretend no one's home. That's the reaction of someone who knows exactly who's outside and doesn't want him to know he's been heard. And yet, 2 days later, Ashley drove to his place on her own. So what changed? What made a woman who'd just hidden from this man, told everyone to stay quiet, turn around and willingly go to him 2 days later? There's no clear answer, only a theory from her mother. Ashley was struggling financially, and according to Monica, Booker had a history of helping her out when money got tight. That's a theory from the person who knew her best, but it's not backed by any documentation. Could money have outweighed the fear she'd shown just 2 days before? It's worth pointing out, fear and financial dependence often go hand in hand in relationships that are technically over but still have a hook in one person. If the person you're afraid of is also the person keeping you afloat, walking away gets a lot harder than it looks from the outside. Or was it something else entirely? Something that had nothing to do with money, something still unresolved between them? The investigation never nailed down an answer. And Ashley can't give one either. Here's something else worth sitting with before we move forward. On December 31st, Ashley was hiding so carefully she had the whole house go silent, meaning she assumed Booker might do more than just knock if he realized she was inside.
Chief leading an all-hands-on-deck search for Ashley Elkins, a missing mother of 2 boys.
2 days later, she gets in her car and drives straight to where he lives, with her phone on her, meaning her location was trackable the entire time. Was this supposed to be quick? In and out, straight back home? Or did she feel like this time would be different, like money or something else would keep her safe? There's no way to know what was in Ashley's head that morning. All we've got is what happened next. Before we keep going, if this case has you hooked, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps stories like this one get seen. Subscribe so you don't miss the next investigation. And drop a comment. What's your take on this one? Now, back to the story. January 2nd, 2025 started out like any other morning for Ashley Elkins. Around 8:30 a.m., she left her home in Warren, telling her family she had some errands to run. She left wearing a long black coat with a fur-lined hood, black leggings, and Crocs, and got into her grey Chevrolet Malibu, a 2009 or 2010 sedan with a noticeable crack in the body on the passenger side and no license plates. Where she was actually headed first, and what those errands were, nobody's ever been able to pin that down. The only confirmed stop that morning was the apartment of the man she'd hidden from just 2 days earlier. About 10 minutes before she got there, someone searched Booker's phone for what happens when you shoot through a pillow. That's not a search you can easily write off as idle curiosity. Not on that specific morning, at that specific time, minutes before Ashley showed up at his door. Using a pillow to muffle a gunshot is the kind of thing you see in crime reporting and movies, not in the average person's daily life. On its own, that search doesn't prove what happened next inside that apartment. Investigators were never able to determine an official cause of death, and there's no direct evidence a gun was fired at that specific moment. But how close that search landed to Ashley showing up on camera is hard to write off as coincidence.
Having concerns about those allegations against Booker, the judge took action.
The court is going to assess an amount of bond in the amount of $250,000 cash.
At 7:58 a.m., surveillance cameras, both the apartment complex's own and cameras from nearby buildings, caught Ashley's arrival. The grey Malibu pulled up. She got out and walked toward the building. Hampton Court had heavy camera coverage between its own system and the surrounding properties, and that coverage is exactly what let investigators reconstruct the day almost minute by minute, right up until the moment Ashley's trail went cold. Her phone data later confirmed she really was inside Booker's apartment at that time, not just near the complex, but inside that specific unit, the place her decision that morning had led her to. That's not just a phone pinging on. It's the signal cross-referenced with nearby cell towers and Wi-Fi networks, narrowing her device down to that exact apartment and nowhere else nearby. Every frame of footage from the complex and surrounding buildings through January 5th would later get combed through in detail. Not one single frame shows Ashley walking back out of that building. The woman who walked in at 7:58 a.m. never appears on camera again. At 9:06 a.m., Monica Elkins texted her daughter about a dream she'd had the night before, that Ashley's car had gone missing. A reply came back almost right away. One word, amen. Short, cold, and nothing like her daughter. Not the way Ashley talked to her mom. Not her usual style at all. A word with a religious weight to it that read more like someone trying to shut the conversation down than a daughter reacting naturally to her mom's dream. Monica called, no answer. It wasn't just that the message felt off in content. The whole tone of it didn't sound like Ashley. Monica would later become completely convinced that those words hadn't come from her daughter at all, but from someone else using her phone. A conviction built not on forensic evidence, but on a mother simply knowing how her own child talks. At 12:30 p.m., a camera near the parking lot caught something else. Two people, a man and a woman, walked up to Ashley's car, that same grey Malibu with the cracked body panel. The man checked the trunk, then climbed into the front passenger seat. The woman got behind the wheel. Together, they drove off in Ashley Elkins' car, while Ashley herself, according to every piece of phone data available, was still inside that building. The footage never reveals who this woman was. Her identity remains one of the open questions in this case. Was she some random acquaintance pulled into all this without knowing what was really going on, or a willing participant? The footage doesn't say, and she's never been named publicly. And notice what's missing from this frame entirely. Ashley. The car she drove there that morning is being driven away in broad daylight, in full view of security cameras, by two people who aren't her, while her phone data places her still inside the apartment she came from. This single moment might be one of the most telling details in the entire timeline. It shows that whatever happened inside Booker's apartment was already in motion by 12:30, and that Ashley's car had become part of a plan that had nothing to do with where Ashley herself actually was. Between 12:33 p.m., when the car pulled away, and later that evening, there's nothing else on camera. Just hours of silence. Later that same day, another search came from Booker's phone. Is it possible to track a person's location if their phone is turned off? Not an abstract question, a very specific, practical one about making sure someone's location couldn't be found. Piece the day together, and here's what you get. A morning search about firing a gun through something to muffle the sound, minutes before Ashley arrives. An afternoon search about tracking a phone that's been powered down, right after Ashley stops responding and her car drives off with strangers in it. Any one of these searches could have an innocent explanation on its own. Stacked together, on the same day, they paint a much darker picture. It's also worth noting, from 7:58 a.m. onward, Ashley never made a single outgoing call or text from her phone that entire day, aside from that one strange reply to her mom at 9:06. No calls to friends, no messages to clients waiting on appointments. Nothing from a woman who, by every account, never let her phone leave her hand. At 11:46 p.m., 14 minutes before midnight, a DoorDash order went out from Booker's phone. The order, 30-gallon hefty trash bags, 43 ounces of bleach, and latex gloves. On its own, that's a normal household shopping list. but it was placed late at night, on the same day the woman who'd walked into that apartment that morning had never once shown up, leaving it on camera. Based on the order time, the delivery likely arrived deep into the night, long after most of the complex had gone to sleep, when the whole neighborhood had gone quiet. Early on the morning of January 3rd, the cameras caught one more frame. It was the kind of hour when the complex is basically empty. A man was pushing an ordinary shopping cart from the store toward the complex's dumpster. Something was on the car, covered by a white sheet. He wheeled it up to the dumpster and, with visible effort, shoved the load inside. It clearly didn't go in easily. It took more than one try. That frame is where the visible trail of January 2nd and 3rd ends. The footage never shows what was actually under that sheet. 24 hours after that grey Malibu pulled up at 7:58 that morning, all that was left of Ashley Elkins was camera footage, a search typed into someone else's phone, and a dumpster holding something heavy that had been hidden under a white sheet. No gunshot heard, no scream reported, not one neighbor who says they witnessed a single moment of it. Just a chain of circumstantial evidence. Nobody has seen Ashley Elkins since.
Roseville address where her ex-boyfriend lives. Another major development Tuesday. Ashley's vehicle was found abandoned.
On January 3rd, Ashley's family filed a missing person report with the Warren Police Department. By then, she'd already been gone more than a day. That report was the first official move in a case her family had already stopped viewing as a simple delay and started viewing as something much more serious. Ashley's sister, Alexis, didn't wait around for the police to make progress. She used Find My iPhone to try tracking her sister's location herself. The signal pointed straight to Booker's apartment complex. The family went there in person, not waiting on law enforcement, moving on their own timeline, driven by their own fear. A neighbor let them into the building, and the family went door to door, floor by floor, looking for any sign of Ashley. They didn't find her. They didn't find her car. They didn't find Booker either. Later that day, Ashley's relatives turned her phone, recovered somewhere near the apartment complex, over to Warren Police. A phone that, according to her mother, might not have even been in Ashley's hands the night before. On January 4th, something happened that would later turn out to be one of the most telling moments in the entire case.
The search for a missing mother in Macomb County is now officially a criminal investigation.
Late last night, police made a major discovery near her ex-boyfriend's home.
Booker called the police himself to report a possible break-in at his own apartment. A call made by a man whose home had already been tied to a missing woman's last known location, whose phone had been the source of unsettling searches the night before. That's either the move of someone extremely confident or someone trying hard to look like a victim instead of a suspect. If you follow that logic, one theory suggests itself. Calling the police first might have been an attempt to get ahead of suspicion rather than wait for it to arrive. But that's a theory, not a fact. Officer Shane Nabosny responded. The apartment door was found ajar. In the bathroom, he found a large bottle of bleach, the drain cover removed, and 2 drops of blood, later confirmed to be Ashley Elkins's. The bathroom looked freshly scrubbed, like someone had just given it a thorough cleaning. The man who reported a break-in ended up with an officer standing in his bathroom, seeing a lot more than signs of some random intruder. On January 5th, another search turned up on Booker's phone. What happens to trash after it's picked up? A logical next step in a pattern that started on January 2nd. Not just getting rid of something, but figuring out exactly where it would end up and whether it could be traced. On January 7th, Ashley's car turned up abandoned at the intersection of 13 Mile and Little Mac, less than 4 miles from Booker's apartment. The same car that had been caught on camera leaving the complex's parking lot on January 3rd with an unidentified woman behind the wheel had simply been left away from any residential buildings, with nothing pointing to who left it there or why they picked that particular spot. That same day, investigators searched Booker's apartment thoroughly and seized the complex's dumpster, the same one that surveillance footage showed a man laboring to shove something heavy into. Early on the morning of January 3rd, a plumber, brought in to take apart the bathroom's drainage system, pulled a bullet fragment, a strand of hair, and a silver hoop earring out of the drain. Items that had no explanation yet at that point for how they'd ended up there. That same day, investigators found a 9mm pistol hidden under a couch cushion in the apartment. On January 8th, Booker was arrested in Flint at the home of a different woman, someone unconnected to Ashley, from a separate relationship entirely. While tracking him down, investigators got a tip that he might be there, secured a warrant, and moved in. The woman who let police into the house cooperated fully, according to investigators. She didn't try to hide him or block the search. Inside, they found a black coat with dried bloodstains and a receipt for the gun purchase, made out in Booker's name. The shoes and pants recovered that matched the description of the clothing worn by the man caught on camera at the dumpster early that morning on January 3rd, the same silhouette pushing the cart.
During that time, while he was in Flint, he accessed the internet to search for such things as fastest routes.
While Booker sat in custody, more searches came through on his phone. The fastest route from Flint to Ohio, what to do while on the run, whether blood can be traced, how to beat a polygraph, how to wipe your Google search history. A search list from a man who was either planning to run or scrambling to figure out exactly how much trouble he was already in. By this point, investigators had also caught him in at least 2 lies. Booker claimed he left the apartment and took an Uber to Flint around 5:17 a.m. on January 3rd, but his phone data showed the driver actually picked him up between 1 and 2 a.m., hours earlier than he claimed. That's not a slip of memory. That's a gap that points to someone trying to move his alibi to a later, less suspicious time. Separately, he claimed he'd stopped at a cosmetics store, and his phone's geolocation actually did line up with the last known location of Ashley's phone. At first, that seemed like an innocent explanation for that final trace of her signal. But the store's security footage showed Booker there with a completely different woman. Ashley was never there. What looked like a truthful match in the location data turned out to be just another lie, the moment it got checked against the video. On January 9th, Booker was charged with lying to police.
So significant risk of flight. With that, I would request a significant bond.
Bail was set at $250,000, enough to keep him locked up for the rest of the investigation. At this stage, the only charge was making false statements, nothing more serious. Officially, this was still a missing person case, even though the volume and nature of the evidence already pointed somewhere much darker. From January 13th through the 19th, dozens of officers, volunteers, cadaver dogs, and drone teams searched the Pine Tree Acres landfill in Lenox Township, the site where GPS data from the garbage truck servicing Booker's complex indicated the contents of that seized dumpster likely ended up. The fact that investigators tracked down the exact route of a specific garbage truck using navigation data shows just how far they went trying to trace the path of whatever was caught on camera early that morning of January 3rd.
It's very dense, it's compacted, so pushing it is very difficult, and walking on it, once the bulldozers go over it, it's very hard.
The search covered roughly 6.5 acres, ground that had to be sifted through by hand, layer by layer, through tons of household waste from across the district. Teams worked 7 straight days. Over that week, several items of interest turned up and were sent off for lab analysis. Ashley Elkins' body was not among them. After a full week, the search was called off.
We ask that you touch this family tonight.
Sorrow amid the exhaustive searches of a landfill for this mother of 2.
On January 25th, 3 weeks after she vanished, more than 100 people gathered at Hampton Court Apartments. Family, friends, neighbors, people from the community who'd never met her but showed up anyway. People held green and purple balloons and lit candles right in the parking lot, where Ashley's car had last been seen. Her cousin, Taylor Redmond, told the crowd the family wouldn't stop until they had the truth. Her uncle, Morris Morton, speaking for the family, publicly floated an idea for the first time, an alert system modeled after Amber Alerts, but for missing women, especially in cases involving suspected domestic violence.
Meanwhile, a GoFundMe has been set up for Ashley Elkins' 2 young sons.
By that day, the GoFundMe for Ashley's sons had passed $11,800, raised mostly by strangers who'd never met her but were moved by her story. 3 weeks had passed since that grey Malibu pulled up outside Booker's apartment. 3 weeks in which her own car turned up abandoned 4 miles away. Her phone changed hands within hours of her disappearing, and the only charge against the last man to see her alive was lying to police, not anything to do with what happened to her. On January 31st, lab results confirmed that the blood found in the apartment complex's dumpster belonged to Ashley Elkins.
Also, in the drain, Ashley Elkins' DNA, Ashley Elkins' blood was in the drain of that.
Based on that result, combined with everything else investigators had by then, blood in the bathroom and the dumpster, the earring and bullet fragment pulled from the drain in Flint, the blood-stained coat, the gun receipt, the lies about his timeline and the store visit, and 9 search queries spanning mid-December through his arrest, Booker was charged with first-degree murder.
year for the family of Ashley Elkins. She hasn't been seen since January of 2025. Now a judge rules her ex-boyfriend will have to stand trial for her murder.
A conviction for first-degree premeditated murder carries life without parole, the harshest sentence Michigan law allows, since the state abolished the death penalty long ago. 4 more charges were added on top of that: tampering with evidence, up to 10 years; mutilation of a body, up to 10 years; concealing a death, up to 5 years; and the original charge of lying to police, up to 4 years. 5 charges total, each one requiring its own proof before this could even reach a jury. And none of them had the one piece of evidence every murder case usually leans on: a body. The preliminary hearing, to decide whether there was enough evidence to send this to trial, stretched across 4 days: August 6th, 8th, 15th, and 22nd, 2025, in the 39th District Court in Roseville, in front of Judge Joseph Boedeker. Spreading the hearing across 4 separate dates wasn't typical. It happened because of the sheer volume of material. Roughly 2 terabytes of digital evidence and somewhere between 190 and 200 physical exhibits. From day one, Booker was defiant. When the judge told him to sit, he stayed standing for 3 straight hours, silent, staring hard at every witness who took the stand, in a way the prosecutor later described as an attempt to intimidate them. That's not typical courtroom behavior. Most defendants try to stay composed, hoping to make a decent impression on whatever jury eventually hears their case. Booker went the opposite direction entirely. On day 1, the court heard from Ashley's mother, Monica, Warren's first responding officer, Michael Quaranta, and a third witness whose identity the court kept sealed for safety reasons. That witness testified that during a phone call with Booker, after Ashley was reported missing, he could see police cars outside Booker's apartment, and that Booker asked him, in that same conversation, whether police were searching through the trash. A question from a man nobody had officially named a suspect yet. A question that showed he already knew exactly where investigators should be looking, long before that detail became public. That same day, the defense pressed Monica on what exactly made her suspect something was wrong, and why she zeroed in on Booker's apartment specifically. Her answer was simple: her daughter's phone was showing that exact location. By day 2, August 8th, Booker refused to change into a jail uniform and appeared over video from his cell instead. At one point, his microphone came on and he shouted. Judge Boedeker addressed it directly in court, calling him a highly disruptive defendant. His own attorney, when asked separately, confirmed Booker was still refusing to cooperate. That same day, Detective Chris Moran of the Roseville Police Department laid out the full picture of the search history pulled from Booker's phone. 9 searches total, spanning mid-December through the day of his arrest. Alongside what investigators already knew, new details came out. On December 22nd, a search for 9mm silencer, and the phrase, "I'm telling God I want to kill someone." On December 29th, 9mm silencer Roseville, and murder in a fit of rage, ex-girlfriend. 11 days passed between that search and Ashley showing up on his building's security cameras. Under cross-examination, something unexpected came out. The defense asked Moran what he'd found out about that phrase directed at God. The detective explained he tracked down the preacher whose sermon it came from, and that preacher confirmed he'd said it on a podcast as a joke, not as anything Booker actually said himself. The defense used that detail to challenge a literal reading of that one search, though it did nothing to explain away the other 8. That same day, the court was shown footage of a man in a black coat with a fur hood, dark pants, black shoes, and a black hat approaching the dumpster. The clothing seized when Booker was arrested in Flint matched it point for point. Color, style, even the fur trim on the hood. The prosecutor walked the court through that match in detail, building a direct line from the surveillance footage to the physical items found in the house where Booker was hiding. On August 15th, lead detective Matthew Lesperance walked the court through a timeline built from Booker's seized phone, the same data behind the charge that he'd lied to investigators. Under cross-examination, the defense went after the accuracy of the geolocation data itself. Attorney Lang asked the detective how precise cell phone location tracking really is. Lesperance admitted it only narrows things down to a general area, not an exact spot, a concession the defense would try to use later. Forensic analyst Tony Grosser, who examined the blood recovered from Booker's bathroom and the dumpster, told the court the lab couldn't determine how long that blood had been there before it was found. That question, how long had it been sitting there, was never resolved, even after full analysis. The blood could have shown up on January 2nd itself, or on any day after, right up until the search. There's no scientific way to pin down the exact window. On August 22nd, the final day of the hearing, Detective Moran took the stand again, this time under cross-examination. Defense attorney Robbie Lang, working through it methodically, got Moran to admit something significant. He couldn't say for certain that the man pushing the cart toward the dumpster in the footage was Booker, and he couldn't say for certain what was under that sheet. Matching a silhouette and matching clothing is still just that, a match, not direct proof that rules out every other possibility. The defense built their entire case around the timeline of when that blood was discovered. According to Lang, on January 3rd, officers from 2 separate departments and Ashley's own family had already gone through Booker's apartment, and none of them noticed anything suspicious. The blood, he pointed out, wasn't found until the next day, after Booker was already gone. That argument didn't dispute that the blood was there. It questioned when it got there, and who might have had access to that apartment in between those 2 visits. Lang summed up his position simply: plenty of people watch true crime content, and having an interest in it doesn't make someone a killer.
Silencer 9mm. But those Google searches, that doesn't help your client, does it?
It doesn't, but I mean, I pointed out at the preliminary examination.
On January 7th, 2026, after weighing everything from both sides, Judge Bodeker ruled that the evidence was enough to send the case to a jury on every count. The video recordings show quite clearly that this never happened, the judge said, referring to Booker's claim of a break-in, the story he told Officer Nabozny back on January 4th. We must ask ourselves, why did he lie about this? Assistant District Attorney Carmen DeFranco laid out the full case that day. Ashley Elkins' blood and DNA in the bathroom, the family heirloom earring and bullet fragment pulled from the drain, and the string of disturbing searches Booker made even before she disappeared. 2 rows of Ashley's family and loved ones sat in the courtroom that day. Witnesses said they looked satisfied with the ruling, but they declined to talk to reporters. On January 22nd, Booker was formally arraigned in Macomb County Circuit Court in front of Judge Joseph Toyer. He stayed silent, refusing to answer the court's questions. So per procedure, the court entered a not guilty plea on his behalf across all counts. He was held without bail. More than 4 months passed before the next major development.
Of killing a Warren mother has been ruled competent to stand trial. A Macomb County judge determining Diandre Booker is fit to proceed, clearing the way.
On June 4th, 2026, the court ruled Booker competent to stand trial, a required formality for a case of this scale, but one that pushed things back by months, in a case already stretching toward a year and a half.
Booker is charged with first-degree murder in the death of 30-year-old Ashley Elkins. She disappeared in January of 2025 after investigators say Elkins went to Booker's Roseville apartment.
Trial is set to begin November 10th, 2026. As of today, the Ashley Elkins case is still unresolved. Diandre Booker remains in Macomb County Jail, held without bail, waiting for his trial to start. There's no verdict yet, just the charges, the evidence, and a date on the calendar separating now from whenever a jury finally hears it all and decides. More than a year and a half has passed since that grey Malibu pulled up outside a house in Roseville, and the central question of this entire case is still unanswered. Until there's a verdict, the people this touched keep living their lives without Ashley. Her sons, Braden and Jaden, are growing up without their mother. According to family, the older boy has nightmares every night. The younger one, on the autism spectrum, doesn't understand why his mom hasn't come back, a concept the adults around him still can't fully explain themselves. The family set up a trust fund for the boys. Over the holidays, Roseville police visited them in person, bringing toys and a symbolic key to the city, a gesture from the same department whose officers were the first to find traces of blood in the apartment where Ashley was last seen, meant to make the boys' first holiday season without their mom just a little easier. The way Ashley's family talks about all this hasn't really changed over time, but it's picked up new layers as the case has moved forward. Her mother, Monica, summed up her grief in one line: he threw her away with the trash.
Just please let me know where she is so I can bury her.
In another conversation, she explained why an arrest and even a conviction wouldn't feel like real justice to her. For me, it won't be real justice without her body, she said. The fact that he'll go to prison and never get out, that's good. But not being able to bury her, that's what's hard.
Imagining that, she was tossed out like trash and that we'll possibly never have her body.
She's also come back again and again to her frustration with how the investigation was handled. We could have found her body if they had listened to me from day one. Not something she said once in a moment of anger, but a belief she's repeated throughout the entire case. Ashley's sister, Alexis, describes her the same way she always has. Someone who loved her family, loved her kids, someone who never would have disappeared like this on her own. Her uncle, Maurice Morton, who's been the family's main voice to the press through all of this, summed up where things stand. The family is relieved Booker's been charged with murder.
We feel very confident that a murder charge can still be brought even without her body.
It won't bring them relief on its own, but it's the start of the road toward justice. Even he, someone who's tracked every detail of this case more closely than almost anyone, admits the motive is still a mystery to him.
I can't get in the mind of a murderer, of a psychotic killer, so we'll leave it at that for now.
I can't get inside the head of a mentally ill person who would do something like this, he said. A question that might never get answered, even after the trial ends. Lead Detective Matthew Lesbrunts, reflecting on the investigation, explained what ultimately pushed the case toward charges. It wasn't one piece of evidence or a confession. It was the sheer number of contradictions in Booker's own statements during recorded conversations. The timeline, the route, where he was, who he was with, none of it lined up. Booker's niece, Payne Barksdale, added another detail to the picture. She said he once asked her to drive a car he called a co-worker's car, telling her, "There's a lot of cops around here, but you've got a license. If they pull you over, there won't be any trouble." Another time, he asked her to hold off using the bathroom until he'd finished cleaning it. There's no direct public confirmation that Ashley was the one behind the wheel that day, but the way events lined up in her own account points in a direction that's hard to write off as coincidence. This case drew attention well beyond Michigan. Detroit stations, Fox 2 and WDIV covered it, and national outlets followed. People, Oxygen, Newsweek. Court TV's Vinnie Politan covered the investigation personally, and organizations focused on missing Black Americans, including Black and Missing Incorporated, got involved too.
Organization that helps bring awareness to missing people of color across the country.
The attention isn't just about the personal tragedy here. Macomb County prosecutor Peter Lucido pointed out that in his 40 years working in the county, there had only been 4 cases where a murder conviction came down without the victim's body ever being found. Ashley Elkins' case is on track to become the 5th, a rare legal situation where prosecutors have to build an entire case on circumstantial evidence without the one piece of evidence every murder case usually revolves around. A lot of questions in this case are still open. The biggest one, where is Ashley Elkins' body? A multi-day search of the Pine Tree Acres landfill turned up nothing, and as far as public information shows, investigators haven't disclosed any other leads since. A year and a half later, that question remains completely unanswered. The cause of death has never been officially determined. Prosecutor Lucido has said outright he can't specify it. The 9mm pistol found under the couch cushion during the January 7th search remains the presumed murder weapon, but ballistics testing couldn't establish a solid, direct link between that gun and any bullet recovered, a detail that should have been the strongest piece of physical evidence in the case and instead became one of its biggest open questions. Even the identity of the figure caught on camera near the dumpster is still unresolved. The detective leading that part of the investigation admitted under oath that he couldn't say for certain who it was. Ashley Elkins' story is the story of a woman who worked, raised 2 sons, and one morning drove to a place she'd been too scared to even approach just 2 days before. Her kids are growing up without their mother now. Neither one of them chose this. The people who gathered at Hampton Court Apartments with green and purple balloons, the family who still talks about Ashley in the present tense a year and a half later, they're keeping alive the memory of someone the investigation still hasn't been able to bring home, not even for a funeral. Clients who used to come to her for haircuts on Knox Road, neighbors who barely knew her but still showed up with candles. They've all become part of this story now. If 9 search queries, security footage, and blood in a bathroom drain